So the key in this is to understand the trajectory that we're on, to think about time, and to understand what's happening now. The edge of the future is now. That'll give us a better shot at understanding where we're headed next. The way to do this is to go out big, think out as far as we can, and try and get our heads around this. Now, the problem with thinking about global trends as a how is that there are literally billions of things out there. There are literally billions. And so you try to cook it down to the next level. At the level of looking external, the standard model for this is called the STEEP model, which probably many of you know. STEEP simply means social, technological, economic, ecological, and political. So you break what's going on in the world into these 5 big buckets. You try and understand how they're going to work. This is what we thought when we did it. Now remember that we're looking at it from a different vantage point. So we're looking at it as a business running a business. So the number one issue is terrorism, no question. We can look down this list. There are any number of things on here that are important at the level of the business. I think this rise of the rest, which is a Fareed Zakaria idea, meaning simply that it's not about the developed world and the developing world. The developed world will stay developed. It's just the rise of everybody else. One of the cool things about demography is that demography is destiny. You can predict what's going to happen to cultures and populations. You cannot predict psychographically how they're going to behave. What's my point in all this stuff? My point is, this is what's happening. This is what's happening. There's a whole world full of data out there. The problem is not the data. The problem is that it's overwhelming. So if there's billions of data points at the global level and hundreds of thousands at the organizational level, how the heck do we know what to do with any of it? How do we turn it into something? How do we use it? What we try to do is something a little different. We try to take the trends, and instead of looking at the trends global, we try to look at the trends here, at this level. Most myopic possible view. Let's look at the system of work where we have a direct impact and understand what those trends are. We have 16 trends that we think are defining, from our point of view, as of when we did this work with research strategy and design this year. That's the things that we think are going to affect us the most. Interesting thing about trends is that they change constantly. Vast amount of quick switch in trends, right? They're like muscles in an athlete. They just fire constantly and they're going off in different directions all the time. And it turns out that there's a whole bunch of stuff that's buffering that change as well. We called those values. They can mean values in the sense that you and I would identify with values, but they can also mean something a little bit larger, things we value as opposed to my personal values, okay? And it turns out that these things change a lot more slowly. And it's the combination of those fast twitch and these slow twitch patterns, or trends rather, that create patterns that we call opportunity themes. These 7 things over here are the 7 themes that we define for us as an organization that we need to be paying attention to. So if you get nothing else out of this presentation today, this conversation, I would say that's the most important relationship that's in here. And it's important because what the theme of the opportunity looks like for you is going to be different than for somebody else, first of all. Second, your judgment about how these 2 things work together is what's known as an advantage. It's your business advantage. And it's our collective advantage as a country or as the state of California, right? So these things aggregate at different levels, but that idea is a very powerful one. You have to pay attention to 6 things. We call it E6. The first thing is engagement. Engagement with people on the question of how they work, not for people on the question of what their space needs to be. Simple, obvious, hard to do. We're behind budget. We don't have enough time. Those aren't the ones to talk about. When you can find the ones that are, the key is engagement, and engage them experientially, because people learn about this stuff in deeply profound ways when they experience something different that causes them to think about what they thought they believed, what they thought they knew from the fact case in a different way. Experiential learning through engagement is the core of this. Of course, it has to be efficient. That's sort of the price of entry. But it also has to be about the human effectiveness thing. This is an idea Drucker came to later. The sort of notion of efficiency and effectiveness and how that juxtaposes against the emergence of knowledge work. It's all about knowledge work and beyond today. We know that. Finally, it's got to be about ecology. It has to be about the social ecology, the human ecology, and the physical ecology of organizations and the way they do what they do. It has to be in the mix. The good news is it is, and the younger part of the population wants it even more than the older part did. And the final idea is expression. So what makes sense for Boeing will not make sense for Microsoft. But the principles that underlie it can. It's not as much different as we thought it was in some ways over time.